You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Good evening and welcome to episode 145 of the podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne with you for this one. Happy Halloween, by the way. And fellas, it was great to see you both in Toronto over the weekend. How we doing?
Doing good, Harp. Yeah, it was great to see the boys out of the booth. Someone finally unlocked the door and let us out. So that was great and just overall fun weekend for me up in the Big Smoke. But I'm back home now and kind of settling down for the week until this weekend. I'm going to go watch a Leafs game. They're going to play Boston this weekend, and I'll be there.
Perfect. So that should be a 4-3 loss in overtime after they were up 3-0. So that should be a great result for you, Case, to go watch that live. Doing well. What a fun weekend. Boys were out of the booth, like you mentioned, Case. That was fun. Because today's Halloween, we should have been doing the opposite of this episode. We're doing hot starts today. Maybe we should have done, cold starts or struggling teams, to make it a bit more spooky for Halloween. But that's what we're doing anyway. We're doing hot starts, and it's going to be fun because I don't have to talk about the Leafs at all this episode.
You could say that these teams have been scary good.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very nice.
Say that,
I like
for
that.
Sure.
All right, yeah, great weekend, guys. Chad, thanks again to you and Paige for the costume party there. Case, thanks for coming. No, I'm just bugging you. Also, great pizza at that place that we went to. Yes. I forget what the name is, but
Portlight
and Ambassador Pizza.
Yeah.
Both great spots.
Yeah, no, that was great. So anyway, a lot of fun. Great to see you guys in person. We don't get to do that very often. And happy Halloween to all our great listeners out there. So, all right, guys, let's start with a little fantasy corner, and then we'll get into our scary good teams, as Case said right at the start of this.
I can title it that, Case. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really good. We'll get into that as well. Teams that have had really hot starts out of the gate to start the 22-23 NHL regular season. So I'll kick off Fantasy Corner here, guys, and I have my first win under my belt. It was very close, right down to the wire. Case against your boss, Luke Vanderbeeren. So the Sunnyvale hockey team has its first win, and yeah, like I said, it was a close one. And obviously I'm rounding up here with the scores, but it was about 178 to 173, and Luke did have a pretty big lead on me at one point, and I was able to catch up. So again, that was great, and I have to thank Jesper Bratt of your New Jersey Devils. He had a monster week. I think he had 7 points or something like that. Yeah. And guys, I want to make something clear. He is not available. Making that clear right now, okay? So anyway, it was
I have an offer for you, and you might change your mind.
Anyway, Case, let's go to you next with fantasy update on week.
Another tough week for me. And remember last year, there was like halfway through the season or something like that, I was in 8th place and 2nd for points for.
I was waiting for this to come out, Case.
It's gonna be this again because I lost by 0.3 points this week. And that is devastating. That, to me, honestly, was a poor management week for me. I could have got an extra game played on Sunday. I just missed it, and the player was locked in on the IR, and I botched it. But the frustrating part is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams ahead of me that have less points than me right now, and like way less points than me. And that is frustrating. Frustrating. I've been giving one player that's been big for me every week. This week was Brandon Montour. Absolute monster week. 24 points for him, leading my team. And I'll go ahead and say the bum of the week was Nathan McKinnon. Not a bad week because 15.25 is still good. But when you're, the highest paid player in the league, I'm expecting up near 30 every week.
That's funny. I forgot that he was the highest paid player in the league. I think that came up on the weekend. He makes $100K more than McDavid now because, yeah, why not? Or has it officially kicked in, or is that next? Does it start next year? I don't know. I forget. But anyways, highest paid player in the league, whether it's right now or eventually. But yeah, Case, that's a tough one. For me, wasn't so tough this week. I played the Zamboni guy, that's Taylor Prosser. He was down and out early in this fantasy matchup, and he knew it. And I don't think he really paid attention, halfway through the week, because he realized that I was just walloping him. I had about 30 more points than the second place in the league in terms of points for. This week I finished with 217. Second place, I believe, was Pappy's Milk with 190. I'm just checking now. Yeah, 190. So about 30 more points than second place. It was just a great week for me. Had a lot of guys, perform pretty well. Bo Horvat was a guy who performed well as Vancouver kind of got rolling. JT Miller as well on that Vancouver team. Picked up Sam Montembeault. I was telling you guys about this for one game. And it was the funniest thing against the Sabres, Harp, which, by the way, Jeff Skinner scored a fantastic goal against him. But the comment on Fantasy in the Yahoo app afterwards was, Sam Montembeault, maybe his best game in the NHL. And I was like, perfect. I streamed him for a night. That was great. Exactly what I wanted.
Of course. And it's against Buffalo, too. Oh,
yeah, so it didn't get much better than that for me last week. The only thing is, I have a few guys who are banged up right now on the roster. Seth Jones, one of my big horses on the back end, he's out 3 to 4 weeks. I have him on the IR Plus now, and just getting news about Chris Letang, who is day to day. So a couple injuries are holding me back. I made some moves this morning to try to counteract that. I'm playing Corey's team, Mail Order Brides, this week, and I'm projected to win, but only by 3 points. And he's got 4 or 5 games on me, so it's going to be a real tight one. But yeah, that was my summary in fantasy.
Well, I'll make sure Chunk sets his lineup this week.
Yeah, that was a problem last year.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, just curious, who has Jamie Drysdale in our league? Tough news about him today.
Tough news. I will look that up right now.
Sure. You guys can also...
He just got dropped, so he's on waivers right now. I don't know who dropped him, but he's on waivers.
Anyway, he could be out the rest of the season, which is really, really tough news for him and the Anaheim Ducks. But before we finish Fantasy Corner, you guys can tell I'm just so old school, because I'm referring to actual points that guys have in a week instead of fantasy points like you guys. So you can tell how old school I am. Anyway, but that is another edition of Fantasy Corner Week 3, and we're about to we're getting close to a full month of the NHL regular season, the opening month. Chad, go ahead.
Yes, before we finish Fantasy Corner, I have kind of been doing this every week as well. So, Case, if you pick a guy who performed for you, I've kind of been picking a guy to watch out for, maybe to pick up. Pick up someone who plays for the Washington Capitals. They play 4 games this week, but every single team, it seems, plays on November 1st, November 3rd, and November 5th, except for Washington and Buffalo, who play on those days off. So you're going to get extra games played.
I picked up Connor Sheary this morning.
That's right. I got Nick
also playing first power play line. So
there you go. That's nice. A solid pickup regardless of games played. But in my other league, I did this dumb thing where I was looking at Sabres players because there were none available in our league except for Dylan Cousins, who Book Hockey picked up today. But I was looking at Sabres players, and I picked up Olofsson, but I should have picked up Skinner because I realized I already had right wings filled for the days that they play, so I only gained 2 games instead of 4. But anyways, those are the 2 teams I would look out for to try to pick up players from this week.
Yeah, good thinking with Olofsson. It's too bad you couldn't get him, because 2 goals for him in the win over Chicago on the weekend. I believe he's got 6 on the year already. So he's a good finisher for sure. And I would be excited about the Capitals with 4 games this week if Connor Brown wasn't on IR. That was a pick that I was really excited about, and he's obviously injured. But I do have Charlie Lindgren, who I like, and hopefully I would think he gets at least 1 or 2 starts, and hopefully he can pick up a win or 2. So anyway, that would be good.
Yes, sir.
All right. that does it for Fantasy Corner, Week 3 edition. And yeah, let's get into hot starts to start the season through the first, 9 or 10 games or so. Yep, Case, we already know what's coming there. And so let's go to you then, Case. And very fitting that you're talking about your New Jersey Devils on Halloween. And first couple of games, little bit of concern. Crazy how Lindy Ruff's job was in jeopardy already through the first couple of games, but they have really turned it around, and they are just firing on all cylinders right now. Talk about the Devils.
Huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the podcast. SeatGeek is a ticket app that takes all the confusion out of buying tickets. SeatGeek makes it extremely simple to buy tickets to all of your favorite sporting events, including Jays and Leafs games, and you can always find a great deal. On SeatGeek, all tickets are scored on a scale between 0 and 10, so you know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. Green is good and red is bad. Plus, Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first ticket purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code Boys in the Booth in all caps. So click the link in the description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. Summer is here, and you know what that means. Extreme sports like spikeball and road hockey have returned, and so is day drinking. The problem is we're not as young as we used to be, and these summer activities can be draining on our bodies. When you push your body hard or just feel run down, it's extremely important to stay hydrated. When you make hydration a priority, it helps you feel healthier on a day-to-day basis. Enter Liquid IV. Whether you're playing sports or nursing a hangover, Liquid IV has you covered. One stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. It contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It's made with premium ingredients, non-GMO, and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. The kicker? This stuff tastes good too, guys. Liquid IV has incredible hydration flavors like watermelon, strawberry, pina colada, and more, but my personal favorite is lemon lime. So, get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code boys_in_the_booth in all caps at checkout. So that's 25% off anything when you order using the promo code boys_in_the_booth, all caps at liquidiv.com. Experience better hydration today at liquidiv.com. Shout out to Cocktail Bomb Shop for sponsoring the podcast. Cocktail Bomb Shop is a Canadian, woman-owned small business, and all of their cocktail bombs are proudly handmade in Montreal. Well, what is it and how does it work? Step 1, you pick your favorite flavor of cocktail bomb and unwrap it. My favorite is definitely mojito. Step 2, drop your cocktail bomb into 8 ounces of sparkling water and watch it fizz for 5 minutes. Step 3, add a shot of your favorite alcohol, some ice, and enjoy. Fellas, gents, boyfriends of the world, these cocktail bombs make the perfect gift for your lady friend because not only are they tasty, but they're Instagrammable as well. Right now, if you go to cocktailbombshop.ca and use the code BITB15, you can get 15% off your entire order. That's cocktailbombshop.ca. Use the code BITB15 at checkout for 15% off.
Yeah, well, first of all, anyone listening frustrated I'm talking about the Devils as a Devils fan, you're daft if you didn't think that I was going to talk about them because they're the hottest team in the league right now. The difference a couple episodes can make on my perception of Lindy Ruff is unreal. I did say in that episode that it was the 84th game of last season. While they're into the new season now, and they have been dynamite, actually dominating teams. And it's been a swing of emotions because first 2 games I thought this team's terrible. Next 3 games I was like, okay, they're good, but I'm skeptical. Now I know they're good. I am locked in at good. Gonna get into some analytics here for you. Someone's rolling their eyes somewhere right now, but too bad. I'm going to throw out some stats and just talk about this team briefly. They're 3rd on Money Puck's power rankings currently, which has a number of stats that go into it. And I could name all of those, but you'd get bored pretty quick. They're 1st in expected goals percentage in the entire league. which is an easier one to understand. And yes, it is by a landslide. But here's some more traditional stats for you. They're out shooting teams in 9 games 354 to 195. And the scoring chances are 263 to 123. The league average of scoring chances is 195. They are absolutely dominating. And I've wrote down a couple reasons to expect this success to stick around and some to expect it to go away. The first one is that the power play is currently 21st in the league in terms of percentage. And their expected goals percentage on the power play, however, is in first in the league at 56.22. So there's more goals to come on the power play and expected to get better. And then their expected goals are higher than their actual goals, and their expected goals against are lower than their goals against, meaning that this team, per the analytics, should be scoring more and should be getting scored on less, which is a good thing when you're in first place. The reasons to expect the success to leave are they are the Devils.
Yep.
The second one is Casey cheers for this team, and any team that Casey cheers for eventually comes back to earth. Tottenham, Giants, Blue Jays, Devils. So those are your reasons. Let me hear it. It's been fun to watch.
It's been very fun to watch, and I'm glad that you brought them up. I wasn't sure if you were going to be honest. I thought maybe you would have, been like a humble, they're very good. Maybe you guys talk about them, but I'm glad you brought them up because they've been on a tear to start the season. That Metro looks like it's going to be tight all the way through and all the way until the end of the season, no matter who gets in. The Devils have looked, better in the games that I've seen them, except for, I forget the one game that they were playing earlier in the season when I texted you and I was like, they look terrible, and I think they lost that game. But you had said that, they are still in game 84 or 85 of last season. So I was like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. One thing I wanted to bring up while you were talking about stats is that not only are they generating so much offense in terms of the expected goals, the shots, the actual goals for everything that you mentioned there, but they've also been really, really good defensively. And a number to quantify that is their expected goals against per 60 is 1.78, which is currently ranked number 1 in the league by quite a wide margin. And that's above teams, in succession like Vegas, Carolina, Boston, who have all been very good to start the year as well. So there's a lot to like about New Jersey. The numbers are backing it up. They just look really good. Now, can they sustain this while their goaltending continues to be sub-average? I don't know, but I would love to see them make the playoffs because if we go back just a few episodes when we were talking about the Metro Division rankings, we all kind of contemplated having New Jersey in the playoffs, and I'm pretty set that they are going to be a playoff team, and I've said that multiple times. So, exciting team to watch. I'm glad they're flying out of the gate. The one thing I will say, though, is there's a reason we're talking about them in this episode called Hot Starts, because it is just a start.
That's right.
The rest of the season to go, and I'm sure, teams like Detroit and Seattle, who also have really good underlying numbers right now, and teams like, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Colorado, who have poor underlying numbers. I'm sure we're going to see some flip-flop in the standings here, but nonetheless, very encouraging for a young New Jersey team. Love it.
Hart, before you say your thoughts here, I just wanted to talk about the defense because Chad mentioned them there briefly, and it's I honestly haven't seen a decor on the Devils like this since the 2000s. I feel good when all 3 pairings are on the ice. Currently, over 55 minutes played for lines. Smith, Severson, and Siegenthaler Hamilton are second and third pairings in the league for expected goals percentage. And it's like Smith Severson is 70.9% currently, and Siegenthaler Hamilton are 69.7%, and then Graves and Marino are number 11. So 3 of the top 11 in the entire league right now. And Marino has been the Devils' best defenseman. They've been playing him in the tough situations. I think late in the second period against Colorado, the play-by-play, they were saying that every shift Nathan McKinnon had played in that game so far, Marino has been on the ice. They're playing him against the best players because he is so sound defensively and such a great skater on the back end. It's been amazing to watch. Now, I wasn't actually going to bring up the Devils until the game yesterday. That game yesterday was just a display of dominance. The shots were 53. Yeah, the shots were 53-21 in a 7-1 win. The Devils Instagram page, they posted John Marino's goal, and the caption was Johnny Hockey, and that felt good after they only allowed Johnny Gaudreau to get one shot all game and beat them 7-1.
Yeah, that was a dominant performance for sure, no question about it. And tough times for Johnny Hockey and the Blue Jackets right now. But anyway, on the Devils, and I'm glad you mentioned John Marino case, because we had a great conversation about him in person in Toronto over the weekend, and just how great he's been after some people, I think, were ripping that contract a little bit that he got in Pittsburgh, and he just needed a change of scenery, I think, and the Devils seems to be a great fit for him. We knew this team could score goals, but I've just been impressed, like Chad said, with how better they are defensively. I still wonder about the goaltending moving forward, but this team is playing better defensively, and again, we knew that they could score. And also, just the growth of a lot of their young guys. Lindy Ruff has been very complimentary so far of Nico Hischier, and just what a great leader he is turning into, and how much he's looked upon by the other guys in that room, and could be a future Selke winner. So anyway, they've looked great, and they were expected to.
Yeah, no, the talk from the locker room lately has been that Nico Hischier has taken ownership of this team, and a lot of guys are looking up to him, which is great to hear. A lot of great captains in the Devils franchise in the history, so.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chadwick, let's get your hot start or scary good team out of the gate.
Scary good start, I guess I'll say. And this one, it's a bit of a cop-out. I had a few options that I was going to bring up. Brad Marchand was one of them, because he had 3 points in his first game, and he came back a month early from having surgery, and he recovered far earlier than anyone expected him to, and he flew out of the gate and had like 15 fantasy points for me in his first game, but I figured that would be too short, so I'm not going to bring him up, though he is an honorable mention. My cop-out answer is just generally some guys who have had great starts are goalies around the league. And I have a few names here that I wanted to mention, because the goaltending right now in the NHL, at least the advanced numbers, looks completely different than what it did last year or the year before. And, that sometimes that's to be expected, at least to a degree, because as we have mentioned a million times, goaltending is pretty much random at this point. But we've seen some great performances from some goaltenders here out of the gate, so I wanted to highlight a few. Number one is Jake Ottinger. He picked up right where he left off last season from the playoffs, and it's safe to say that he's earned that number one spot in Dallas there. So he currently leads the league in expected goals, goals saved above expected, rather, and he's played 7 games, and he's been great. Carter Hart is another one who last season was borderline unplayable, almost all year. Him and the myriad of backup goaltenders, or 1A, 1B goaltenders, but it was more like 2Cs in Philadelphia. It just didn't work. And finally this year, Carter Hart seemingly is living up to his high draft stock and his potential, and he's been great out of the gate. Currently ranked number 2 in goals saved above expected, and Philadelphia has themselves as a team flown out of the gate and been really good. I expect that to come back down to earth, but as we talked about actually in person on the weekend, Carter Hart is the only reason that Philadelphia is getting by and winning these games. It's because he's been so spectacular in net. A couple more names here, and then I'll let you guys chime in on each guy. Stuart Skinner right now, currently having a great start to the season. He's only played 4 games, but it's quickly looking like he could be the starter for Edmonton down the stretch, which is bad news for Oilers fans after giving Jack Campbell 5x5. Clearly that was a big risk when they already had a guy like Stuart Skinner who had shown a lot of promise, but he's, been flying out of the gate. currently ranked 4th in goals saved above expected. The 4th guy, had to bring him up, is Ilya Samsonov. We talked about this just before we got going. He's the first goalie for the Leafs in the last, I would say, 3 years. Excluding Jack Campbell 2 years ago because he was good when him and Freddie were a tandem. But, last season the Leafs got 0 goaltending all year. Every single guy was below expected in terms of that favorite stat that I have, goal save above expected. Ilya Samsonov right now, currently ranked 7th in the NHL. Goaltending is officially not the problem anymore in Toronto, and it's surprising because he was slotted in to be the backup at the start of the year, and he kind of had to take that jump once Matt Murray went down. So there's 4 names I believe I gave you: Ottinger, Hart, Skinner, and Samsonov, who I think have all had really great starts to the season. And depending on how the rest of the year goes, these are 4 guys who can really be difference makers for their team, and they have been so far. So what are your thoughts on those guys?
Well, it's funny because one of my teams that's my honorable mention, another one that I wanted to talk about, was Dallas, who started off 4-0-1 and was really hot. Now they're 5-3-1, but a lot is to do with Ottinger going down with an injury. Mm-hmm. Now, he has been carrying that team. There's 2 parts of that team that have been electric to start this season. That first line has been very good for them, and Ottinger, and he is the reason that they are in first in the Central, in my opinion. He's been phenomenal. Carter Hart, talk about another team that's getting carried high in their division because of goaltending. Philly, we expect them to be bad. Well, if Carter Hart can steal many games, then maybe they won't be last in the Metro. Columbus is kind of taking ownership of that currently. Who was your last one?
So Stuart Skinner,
my fantasy player. Maybe bad news for Edmonton fans. Well, it's great news for the Brat Pack fans. And then, one of the only bright spots on Ilya Samsonov, or on Toronto, is Ilya Samsonov. So I totally get it with goaltending. I want to add to your goaltending conversation here with 2 more, because my 3rd team that I wanted as an honorable mention is Vegas. 8-2. I didn't expect them to be this good. I think I have them 3 or something in that division, or 2nd in the division. Well, I trash talked their goaltending, and so far they've proven me wrong, with Logan Thompson being 4-2 with a .943 save percentage, and Aiden Hill with a .940 4-0. I know Hart. I see
Hart
your
wants
face.
to gloat. He wants to. How
about we save that conversation for halfway through the year?
No.
Logan Thompson's numbers are
now.
904.
Let's get them out now.
What I want to say about Vegas and their goaltending and save percentage is that their team has been very good. That first line is the current best line in hockey. I'm calling the first line, I think they've been together recently now, is Stevenson, Eichel, and Stone. They've been electric. And then their defense. All 3 pairings are in the top 20 for expected goals percentage. To put that in perspective, the top 20, all 3 of their pairings, the Leafs, Edmonton, and Boston have no pairings in the top 20, and the only other team to have all 3 pairings is Devils, as I mentioned before. So all 3 pairings have been good for this team, limiting high danger scoring chances against, and that's why you can see such high save percentages for these 2 goalies.
Yeah, and just to chime in before Harp jumps in on Logan Thompson as well. Also, the surface level numbers look good, but the underlying numbers look good too. So, Harp, why don't you gloat about the guy that you had a lot of faith in, and you made the comparison between Logan Thompson and the guy who we just talked about earlier, Jake Ottinger. You're high on the guy.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned Ottinger and the Stars, and who's coaching there now? Pete DeBoer. And DeBoer made it clear that Thompson was his guy last year instead of Robin Lehner in Vegas. And yes, I'm going to gloat for a minute, guys, because I was rooting for Logan Thompson going into this season, another talented, young, up-and-coming goaltender, and he's had a great start, and honestly, I'm not surprised, and definitely lower by a bit on the totem pole compared to Jake Oettinger, but he's up there when it comes to young, talented goaltenders, and I'm not surprised at all. So I've got a smile on my face about that one.
No kidding. How about Jack Eichel as well, being a point per game through his first 10 or 11 and scoring that beautiful one the other night in overtime?
Yeah, I tell you, that was quite the goal with, I think, 6 or 8 seconds left on the clock in overtime. And if it wasn't for Connor Hellebuyck, that game would have been a blowout for Vegas, because they heavily outshot, the Jets in that one. I think at one point the shots were like 30-8 or something like that. It was just ridiculous. So yeah, he's had a great start as well.
That's Jets hockey for you. Just get outshot, hope you have your Vezina winner between the pipes, and go from there. It's about all they do. But any more thoughts on the 4 guys that I brought up just before we move on to the hot take?
Yeah, obviously. Well, I think kind of touched on Oettinger and Thompson there, but Carter Hart, still young. I think we all knew that as Philly got a little bit better and played a little bit better, that he would get back to the Carter Hart that we saw early on, and they would not be in the position that they're in at 5-2-1, I believe, out of the gate if it wasn't for him. And then Stuart Skinner, I mean, there's a guy that I kind of wondered if he would take the net for Edmonton. Jay Woodcroft obviously knows him really well from their time in Bakersfield together, and I think he's really good. I like Skinner, and he's got a powerhouse team in front of him with 2 Ferraris up front in Draisaitl and McDavid. So I kind of saw this coming a little bit, and definitely a bit of concern, because Jack Campbell's definitely struggled out of the gate, and that's a big long-term deal that they have committed to him. And then, as disappointing as your Maple Leafs have been so far, Chad, at 4-4-2 out of the gate, Samsonov has been good. And you and I had some conversations before the start of the season about which guy between Murray and Samsonov could take over the net. And I picked a 25-year-old in Samsonov, who I thought was good enough in Washington, a little inconsistent, but I thought really gave them a chance in that first round series against the Florida Panthers. But I think a veteran coach in Peter Laviolette just didn't have a lot of trust in the 2 young goaltenders in Samsonov and Vanacek, and they got Samsonov on a great deal for 1 year at just over $1.5 million. And if I had to take a guy before the start of the season to take over the net, obviously Murray gets injured, but still I was going with Samsonov. And even though the Leafs have been mediocre out of the gate here, he's been good.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, well, for my hot start, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here, guys, and clearly I have not learned to not go against the Boston Bruins, and so I'm going to talk about the Bruins.
You had to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You've been hearing about it on Instagram.
Oh, for sure. I've been getting messages, and Mark Breyer, a good friend of mine, he tagged me in a couple of posts on Instagram and Facebook, and take that, Harp, and, about the Bruins and everything, and hey, I'll take it, man. I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about this team, and it's silly of me, because it's like the Pittsburgh thing every year. Never learn not to doubt these guys. But yeah, very critical of the Bruins going into this season, of course, with all of the injuries, and they've been great. And I think, and obviously, I've got a couple of notes on the Bruins out of the gate, who are 8-1, but I think the biggest reason for their success so far, for me, is the coach, and that's Jim Montgomery. And this team just looks like they're having fun playing hockey, and Jim Montgomery has obviously been through a lot, but the impression that I get from him is that he's a lot of fun to play for, and he's really good with the players. And so things obviously went sour with Bruce Cassidy, and who was kind of, who's kind of a hard-nosed kind of guy and is obviously having success in Vegas, but Jim Montgomery deserved a second chance, and you love to see stories like this. And I think the guys really like him, and they're having a lot of fun, and the record shows that. And then a couple of other notes. Linus Ullmark, undefeated so far with a .945 save percentage. I do expect those numbers to drop as the season goes on, and for him to kind of come down to earth a little bit. But surprisingly, he's been the guy between the pipes so far, besides Jeremy Swayman, who I think we all expected to be the guy out of the gate. And it's not like he's been bad or anything, but they have a true 1A, 1B situation, a true tandem situation, as we talked about over the weekend. And Ullmark has been better of the two, so that's been great to see. Obviously, the addition of David Krejci, bringing him back. Brad Marchand comes back a month early, gets 3 points, like just ridiculous. But a guy that has really stood out to me and has been a good story so far is a former Devil for a brief period of time, and that's AJ Greer, guys, who has 5 points in 7 games. So obviously don't expect him to be close to a point per game as we get through the rest of the season here, and may find himself down in Providence at some point when the Bruins get back to full health. But man, he's been quite the story so far, and they've had other guys step up as well. Nick Foligno, who was on waivers, he scored a few times and looks better. Mike Riley, another guy who was on waivers, he's played pretty well. He looked good in Ottawa at their home opener when I went a few weeks back, and It's been fun to watch. I'm eating my words on the Bruins, of course. I haven't learned yet, clearly, not to go against them. And man, I just with Charlie McAvoy coming back, I don't see this team slowing down anytime soon. And you'd have to think that a long-term deal with David Pastrnak is going to get done sooner rather than later with how well this team is playing. So anyway, I know I'm rambling on about the Bruins, but I had to go with them, had to take the low-hanging fruit. So a thought on the Bruins.
Yeah, well, it's easy to say that they're having fun when a key stat is that they are first in goals for per game. It's pretty easy to have fun when that's happening, especially second in goals against per game. But you mentioned Pastrnak there. So far, like MVP type season going on there. He's been ridiculous. 17 points in 9 games. I know McDavid has him beat, but we just expect that at this rate. I think we're all eating our words because we ranked this team lower in the division rankings because we thought that they were going to have a slower start, missing so many key players, Marchand, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, to name a few. We thought that this was going to be a slow start. They're going to drop a bunch of points in October and November, but then be real good after the new year. Well, not even close to what's happening right now, and they have been so good, both scoring and defensively. It's a full team effort here.
100%. There's so much to say about the Bruins because they have just flown out of the gate. They've been so good to start the season when nobody thought they would be because, like you said, Case, they're missing, 2 of their biggest players to start the year in McAvoy and Marchand. But I just want to say, of the 3 of us, I was definitely the highest on the Bruins, and I want that to be known so that people don't think I'm just a biased Maple Leaf fan. I actively was not cheering for, but rooting for the Bruins in a way because, they were my horse. I was like, I'm not going to take them lightly because I know they're a good team and I know they're, relatively deep and their big guys show up. This team seems like, it almost feels like a last dance for this team, doesn't it? Like, I know it's not really, but, bringing back Krejci for a very cheap deal, Bergeron on a 1-year deal. He'll be year to year from now on if this isn't his last season. He's still so good, and he'll probably be so good until he retires. But it just feels like, everything is coming together this year. And, man, they could be a dangerous team in the playoffs if they keep getting solid goaltending, which is another thing that you mentioned, Harp. Like, Linus Ullmark out of the gate has been great. And, Swayman has been okay, a bit below average, but expect him to bounce back as the year goes on. The one thing I was surprised to see when I was looking at, kind of the underlying numbers for the Bruins is that, maybe their goaltending doesn't have to be incredible, or maybe their system makes their goalies look a bit better because they've allowed the third fewest high danger shots against in the league so far. And by the way, number 1 is the Devils case, so you'll be happy to know that. But it just everything is clicking for this team. Bergeron is ranked 12th in our fantasy league. I mentioned that Marchand had 15 fantasy points the night that he came back, 3 actual points. So things are going really well, and they're not going to get worse anytime soon. Of course, barring injury, knock on wood if you're a Bruins fan. But yeah, this team has been fun to watch through the first, 10 games or so. And, we said it, if they can bank some points at the start of the year, they're just going to be able to cruise to a playoff spot. And it certainly seems like that's the plan for Boston right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely could see this as a last dance kind of team for sure, because they're obviously going for it until Bergeron decides to hang him up, and with Marchand and Krejci and everyone else there. So, yeah, absolutely.
And some uncertainty with Pasternak, too. That was something I didn't mention. Even though, it's likely that he re-signs in Boston, it's going to be a big number, so they're going to have to probably move some stuff around, and maybe Boston management doesn't want to pay him that much if they plan on doing some sort of rebuild or retool. But I'm just saying, because of that uncertainty plus the other aging players, it just seems like this is a last dance, and the guys are having fun, like we mentioned. So a lot's going right for the Bruins, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing that I saw about the Pasternak deal is that there have been daily communications, but they just haven't been able to nail down on a number, and that is the biggest thing for sure. The last that I saw, it was from Fluto Shinzawa of The Athletic, I believe, who covers the Bruins, and he reported that this could be like an 11 times 8 kind of deal, just massive. So
why not more? Why not
seriously, more? Yeah, he's a hell of a player, that's for sure. All right, well, there we go, guys. Scary good starts. Love that title on Halloween, and that is going to wrap it up for episode 145. Just one more note from me before we wrap up. My NHL 23 custom roster titled Boys in the Booth is now available on Xbox One. So anybody who has an Xbox and got Chell 23, you can give that a download. And speaking of AJ Greer, he was actually the guy that I used as someone who got a nice bump in our post on Instagram for Chell ratings. So anyway, wanted to plug that as well.
Remind me to upload mine too, because I have done mine. I didn't do an extensive, probably not as extensive as you did, but I created the most important players, for the upcoming drafts, and edited some overalls and potentials that were egregiously wrong. So I did all the main things, a couple players on each team, or at least the big ones. So I did that. Remind me to upload that on PlayStation so that we have a Boys in the Booth roster on PlayStation and Xbox. Final thing I'll say is I think this might be the first episode since we've finished selling merch. So I just wanted to thank everybody who did buy merch, because you allowed us to buy this new recording software, which has been working really well and has improved the audio and video quality of our podcasts, and will going forward. So thank you everybody who bought merch at boysinthebooth.com.
Absolutely. All right, good chatting with you guys. Good to see you both in person over the weekend, and to everybody out there listening, have a happy Halloween and a great week, and we'll chat with you again next Monday.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details, and don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at www.patreon.com/boysinthebooth.